So investments for me started about the age of 17. So I got my first job when I was 16 working at Pizza Hut, worked there for about a year, and I ultimately saved enough money to invest into the stock market. And that was really exciting for me because it was an interesting concept to take something good and make it better, and something great and even make that better. So my first job ultimately led to my investment in the biomechanical company, Vivint, and you've seen how much they've grown, so that's kind of exciting for me. But I was thinking more of on a grander scale of how this investment technique could work in our everyday lives, and it ultimately brought me to the ultimate investment. So the ultimate investment starts with this quote that I saw by Warren Buffett. It's invest in as much as yourself as you can, and you are your biggest asset by far. So I thought, how do we invest in our biggest asset? How do we invest in ourselves? And it starts with your mind. So an investment in your mind is a commitment to education. So it doesn't start when you're in kindergarten and you graduate high school. And it doesn't start or finish when you get your associates, your bachelor's, your master's, your PhD. It's a continuous education commitment that you make today, or if you can make it tomorrow, it's great. So some things that I've seen of people that have committed to education and some things that I've tried, maybe it's people watching, because you can actually learn a lot by just observing people and how they treat others and how they interact with individuals. Maybe it's joining a new club and broadening your horizons to things you might be interested in. For my mom, it was investing in her education by reading books. So a little background about my mom. She actually was diagnosed with dyslexia at the age of 5. So she had to go to special schools all growing up, and she felt different. But that didn't stop her from pursuing her education in reading. So here's her first shelf of books. You'll see there's about like 50 books here, and that took a while for her to accumulate and to gain that confidence. And she was able to learn more about how she can invest in her career as a therapist. And she loved this so much that she started investing in more books and ultimately in more books. And that was beneficial for her, and I looked to that as an example. And I thought, okay, well, how can I invest in my education daily? So I chose at the beginning of the semester to join and participate in a spontaneous activity daily. So here are some of my examples of my spontaneous things that I've done almost daily. So in the bottom left, you'll see me and my friends at a sunset. And you might think, okay, spontaneous, that's the most basic word of this generation, let's get rid of it. But with this, I was able to take time for myself and kind of have time with my friends and learn and develop an appreciation for the beautiful sunsets in Rexburg. I was able to appreciate our different personalities and the different places we've come from. The bottom right is karaoke, newfound love of mine, and if I had never tried that spontaneous adventure, I would have never known. I don't sing very well at all, so putting myself out there and learning more about how I can make a fool of myself was an investment in my education. But as I continue to learn more about my education and more about how I can invest in myself, I've come to know that an investment in your knowledge is not enough. An investment in your knowledge also needs to improve and gain an investment in your heart. And an investment in your heart includes falling in love with yourself and coming to know your strengths and abilities. So maybe that's trying things that make you scared, that make you nervous, that make you excited. Someone I know in my life that didn't put any effort into an investment in their heart and no self-awareness was my brother, sadly. So in high school, he had gained a lot of weight and he was overweight and he had no self-confidence because he felt like he wasn't attractive. He got addicted to the computer game RuneScape. Anyone heard of it? Yeah, okay, guilty. So he put his self-confidence in his ability of gaming. He had no self-confidence in himself, and ultimately that was really hard for him. But when he got out to college, he lost about 75 pounds, really exciting for him. And then he met a girl. So when I say meet a girl, you think, oh, good for him, finally he catches a break, he gets self-confidence, but he built his self-confidence off this girl. And ultimately, they made some bad decisions and broke up and had a harsh breakup, and he still faces consequences to that to this day. And that was 5 years ago. And he would never admit it, but I've seen the effects that a lack of investment in your heart and self-esteem will have, so I advise that you don't. And I learned this lesson from my brother, but I also learned it very clearly from my stepmom. So she came into my life when I was about 9 years old, and she had helped me grow and develop, and she's the reason of who I am today, a big part of it. But she also taught me about the investment in your spirituality. So an investment in your spirituality on a broader scale than we just think as members of the church, because when we hear spirituality, automatically we think of our relationship with our Father in heaven. And that's great. We should think that. That is awesome. But how do we broaden spirituality to others that aren't religious and don't have an association with religion? And it's quite simple. When I looked into it more, they had a great definition of a connection of things that are not fully understood. So we can bring that back to our example of our religion, and we think of our relationship with our Heavenly Father and our knowledge that we have of the premortal existence and the postmortal existence. So we know we're going to be gods one day, right? We know that there's 3 degrees of glory, but beyond that, we don't have much knowledge, but we have faith and beliefs, and we actually live in order to, and for a greater cause, and ultimately to get to that destination. So for others that aren't a religious or have a religious affiliation, that could be their relationship with science, with the universe, and ultimately with different art pieces that I've witnessed. So I share the investment of your spirituality choosingly. So from my witness, investment in your spirituality will protect and is like a guardrail for other investments like your heart and in your mind. So from where I'm from in San Diego, as Jenica mentioned, there's this really sketchy highway. It's called Highway 67. I live right off of it. I don't recommend driving on it unless you're visiting. So if you look to your right, it's just a drop-off, complete drop-off. And if you were to drive without a guardrail, it would be really dangerous. So let's compare that to who we are now. So we make this investment in our mind, and we develop this education, and we're in school, and we're doing so well, we're driving, but then we fail a test, so we're starting to go off the edge. But that guardrail is what keeps us from falling off the edge. Your spirituality is what keeps you from losing your mind. It's what keeps you from dissatisfaction. It's what keeps you from emptiness and loneliness. And ultimately, it'll also keep you from losing your heart and your relationships with other people. So I wanted to practice the spirituality boosting activity. So everyone close your eyes. Okay, I'll do it too. So breathe in, pause, breathe out. Let's do it again. Breathe in, pause, breathe out. Okay, keep doing that. So think of your happiest moment in your life. Was it when you came home from your mission and saw your family? Was it when you took your dream vacation to Hawaii? Now open. Notice a sense of peace that you have. If you invest in your spirituality, you'll have time and you'll make time for other things that matter. And I promise you that an investment in your spirituality will also help you in your investment with your mind and in your heart. And I've seen and I've witnessed through my experience in the stock market, and not much, but what I've seen with my family and my dad especially, it's a great feeling to invest in something that's greater. But there's better things than just money. An investment in your mind, in your heart, and in your spirit will ultimately make your priorities more clear and a more balanced lifestyle. An investment in your mind, in your heart, and your spirit are just priceless. Thanks.